Welcome to Sliver and Bite TV. Today we're making Gratin Dauphinois. It is a French dish and a lot of people may know it as potato bake or potatoes or gratin. But we are going to make it as authentic as we possibly can with a little change, because back in the day they didn't put grated cheese on it. But we're going to put a little bit of cheese on it just to increase the richness, just a little bit. And if it's okay for Marco Pierre White, it's okay for Sliver and Bite. It is an incredibly easy dish. It does take just a little bit of time. So we've got our potatoes, and what I've done is I've lined them up in the baking dish that it's going to go into, because then I roughly know how much I need. There is 2 kilos here. That's enough for 10 people, easy. We've got some butter. Now the butter is basically just to add a little bit of flavor, but stop the potatoes from sticking to the baking dish and to the foil once we put it on. Salt, white pepper, garlic, and some nutmeg, along with some heavy cream and just a little bit of milk just to loosen it up. First up, we are going to get our cream mixture together because we want to infuse the garlic and the nutmeg. So we're going to put in our cream. And our milk, just to loosen it up just a little bit. We have our tablespoon of coarse salt, you can use flake, and some white pepper, because that disperses just a little bit better, and then you don't have the flecks of the black peppercorn floating around your milk and cream mixture. Now for the garlic, you could chop it up finely. I think it's much better to use a zester, purely because it will travel around a little more evenly whilst in the oven. So just make sure you've got all of the husk off. Careful of those fingers. And we don't want to put too much garlic in. I know myself, I love garlic. However, you don't want it to overpower the dish. It's a gentle side dish. Okay. That's all inside there. Rid of that. And fresh nutmeg. How much is completely up to you. Again, you don't want it to overpower. And we mix that together. Now, some people may like to use thyme. Some people may like to bring this to a gentle simmer before adding their potatoes. Traditionally, it's cooked from cold. Okay, and this we can set off to the side. And then we'll want to stir that a little every now and then, just to make sure We are agitating it to get the garlic and the nutmeg getting around. Now we are going to peel our potatoes. There are many potatoes that you're able to use for this particular dish. You want something that is absorbent because you want to have all of the cream and those gentle spices to absorb into the potato. This one here in Australia, I'm using a brushed potato. They're the ones that come in the bag and they're all dirty. Got some water here just to prevent them from going brown. It's probably not too necessary since we are making it relatively quickly. It's a quick turnaround. Now, you don't need to get all the blemishes off. It just depends on how you're going to present them. If you're having a fine dining experience, you want to make sure that you've got a nice presentation and not just for the family. But if it's just for the family, you can leave a couple of these blemishes on. It's not the end of the world, as long as it tastes good. Gratin Dauphinois is from the 18th century, from France, southeast Alps. I weighed these in at 2.3 kilos. You just think about how much of this peel weighs. I basically figured out it would be roughly 200 grams. So here's hoping. And I am making a generous serving here. Of course, you can half this recipe, but they're so good. And leftovers sometimes is a blessing. You'll be able to head to sliverandbite.com.au to find this recipe, and you can search for more recipes on the Sliver and Bite YouTube channel. Okay, last one. The French love their potatoes. They've got so many different types and styles. And make sure you're stirring the cream and milk mixture. I'm going to wash these a little bit more. I'm going to relocate the baking dish, and I'm going to lay down a tea towel, because once I start cutting the potatoes, got them. Now I took a ruler out just to check the size, and just as I thought, it is almost half a centimetre. So we're 0.5 of a centimetre, possibly just under. Now, once you get down to the sort of 3/4 of the way down, you want to make sure you use the guard for safety. Because the last thing you want to do is slice your finger. We lay them out to make sure we don't have just a whole heap of starch and residual water from washing them come off into our milk and cream mixture. The milk and cream mixture back over. And what we need to do is make sure we taste. Wow. I'm surprised at just how much taste is in the few ingredients we put in there. So what we can do now is start layering these into the mixture. And then push them down to submerge. And then we can layer on top, because this way all of the potatoes end up having contact with the mixture. Because if you just bunch them all in, they will end up creating a seal and it won't be able to penetrate. I've gone for a medium slice, too thin, and really there's not much the potato can absorb. Too thick, it'll take too long to cook through. Now, pieces of all sizes are welcome, because when we layer, we want to fill in the gaps. Marco Pierre White said it brilliantly when he said he loves touching food and building things. He loved Lego, and he now swapped the Lego for the culinary Lego, I guess you could say. And if you can't touch your food, you're not experiencing the full weight of what you're actually creating. Put on the oven now so it can preheat. We're going for 140 degrees Celsius. Good things come to those who are patient. Because it is so easy to just mix it all in one big tub, pour it into a baking dish, cover it and cook it for an hour. But a bit of time and patience, and you go from having an average dish to something to be proud of serving. Okay, now I've only got little bits here, so what I'm going to do is possibly toss them through at the very end. We may not need to. Now, with the butter, we are just going to roughly spread it around. Depends on how soft it is, because what I might do is roughly rub it around and then use a basting brush to spread it around a little bit more evenly. You could also sprinkle a little bit of salt around. However, I've got a generous amount, and you can always flavour. You can always add salt and some cracked pepper at the end of the cook to season. Now what we're going to do is layer the potatoes in the baking dish, slight overlap. And of course there'll be varying sizes here. Now I saw one cook say, "You're an idiot if you do this." Again, it is just down to presentation. So it's just how you would like to present it. what he had done is pour, that's the oven, just at temperature. He poured a whole heap of the potatoes in and squashed them down just to make sure that there wasn't any lumps and bumps, an empty area. So you can definitely do that too. But what this will achieve is even cooking. Now what you want to do is go back the opposite way, because you don't want to have it uneven, because all of these thicker bits will end up pushing it up to one side. So we go back this way. And once we are done with this second layer, we will ladle on a little bit of the cream mixture. Just to fill in the gaps. As this cooks and the potatoes soften, these little gaps will fill because the potatoes will expand. And some of the smaller pieces are great just to prop up the ends. And again, after this layer, we will ladle on some more of the cream mixture. And I might push down, because that way it will shuffle the slices together. Because what you want is firm bedding. Mixture. It smells absolutely divine. Now, with my research, so many restaurateurs were saying that they used to have several different types of potatoes available on the menu. And now, basically, you've got mash or, you know, something relatively pedestrian, because they're not making any type of statement or culinary flash with the potatoes. I mean, one potato dish I'm absolutely in love with is the pomme de chasse, which is whipped mashed potato and then piped onto a baking dish and baked, and it's a crispy exterior and a nice fluffy interior. It's absolutely amazing. But, you know, it's a side of fries these days, or mashed potato, which is a shame. Okay. Push that down, make sure we're even. You can see them all sort of slotting into place. Now, let's put a little one there. One last push down, just to make sure we're all set. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of drip on the side, so we want to make sure we clean that up, because in the oven it will simply burn and the dish won't look that good. And then just put it around your finger and just run it around the inside there as well. Doesn't need to be all the way down, because we are going to top this up with the last of the mixture. And you want this to come up approximately a centimetre above, because the potatoes will drink all of this in. And it's basically a perfect amount. And that's, we aim to have very little wastage. And now you can put a little bit of nutmeg over the top. Completely up to you. Nutmeg was not one of the original ingredients, nor is cheese. But what we'll do is we will put this into the oven, and we will put the cheese on halfway through, because what I want to do is press down the potatoes, because one, they will start to float a little bit, and we want to then, any evaporation push the potatoes down so that the milk mixture sits on top. So we're going to make sure this is nice and tight. Now for even cooking, we are going to place it in a bain-marie. Put the kitchen cloth on the bottom. This will assist with any of the bubbles going too much up into the side. So we're going to put that in. And it only needs to be a quarter of the way up. And that is off into the oven. Okay, we are halfway through. We're 45 minutes into cooking. I am going to retrieve the gratin from the oven. Just making sure I shut the oven just to keep the heat in. Now at this stage, we are going to remove the foil. And we're just going to push down just to make sure we don't have any air bubbles. Agitate it just a little bit. And now it can actually be taken out of the bain-marie. What I'll do is put a tea towel just to the side so I can dry the bottom off. That is back into the oven for another 45 minutes. Okay, 45 minutes is up. So we want to do three things. One, check just to see the tenderness, and there's a little bit of give in them, but it's not really there yet. And as you can see, there's a few bubbles coming up. So we're going to push down on that again. But I can feel the potatoes coming up to meet the tops. There's a lot of bubbles on that side. And we are going to grate some Gruyere cheese over the top. Like I said, just for a little bit of richness. And of course, it isn't a part of the original recipe, but it is nice to make it your own. And then this is back in the oven for another 45 minutes. At 170 degrees Celsius. So after 1.5 hours, we are done. I've done the skewer test and it's coming out nice and clean with no resistance. We are recovering this and it is sitting here on the bench for 1 hour. And we only need it loosely wrapped. It's just so that there is a bit of heat being trapped inside underneath the foil, so it doesn't completely lose all of its heat. This could sit on the bench for up to 1.5 hours and still be quite warm. Okay, we're back after about 1 hour now. That looks absolutely divine. Well, the thickness of it is brilliant. Now, your first lift is going to be always the messiest because it's coming in on the angle, which can be a little awkward. But what you can do is assist it with a knife just to keep it together. Oh yes. That is absolute perfection. And the only thing to do now is eat it. Not too sloppy. The cream is nice and set, and that's just the cream that hasn't been soaked up by the potatoes. Creamy, potatoes done to perfection. Well worth cooking this. It is such a great potato dish. So get into the kitchen. Head to sliverandbite.com.au and get all the ingredients together and cook yourself some Gratin Dauphinois. See you soon.